A millionaire found a girl sleeping on his doorstep. What she was hiding changed everything. Thunder crackled across the steel-gray Manhattan sky as Maxwell Ryan stood at his penthouse window, a pristine coffee cup untouched in his hand. The bitter March wind howled through the empty streets below, carrying rain and whispers of another sleepless night. That's when he saw her, a small figure, curled up on his doorstep, clutching a worn canvas bag like a lifeline. Through the security camera feed, he could make out a child's face, dirty and tear-streaked, yet peaceful in sleep. Something about her stirred a long-buried memory, a shadow of his own past that he'd spent millions trying to forget. Before diving into this touching story, take a moment to share where you're watching from in the comments below and hit that subscribe button. Your location adds a special connection to our growing community. Maxwell Ryan built his empire from nothing but grit and raw determination. At 42, he stood at the helm of Ryan Enterprises, a technology investment firm that transformed struggling startups into industry giants. His story was the quintessential American dream, from a foster child sleeping in homeless shelters to a self-made billionaire whose name graced the covers of Forbes and Fortune. The sleek glass and steel skyscraper housing his company's headquarters represented everything he'd fought for. Each morning, as he walked through the marble lobby, the click of his Italian leather shoes echoed like a reminder of his triumph over poverty. His employees saw a man carved from ambition, immaculately dressed in bespoke suits, perpetually composed and ruthlessly efficient. But behind the polished facade, Maxwell Ryan was unraveling. 3 months ago, his trusted business partner of 15 years, James Harrison, orchestrated a devastating betrayal. Harrison had secretly been diverting company funds, nearly $300 million, through a complex web of offshore accounts. The scheme came to light only after Harrison disappeared, leaving behind a trail of falsified documents and shattered trust. The betrayal cut deeper than mere financial loss. Harrison had been more than a partner. He was the closest thing to family Ryan had known since losing his younger sister Sarah in the foster care system 30 years ago. They'd shared holidays, celebrated victories, and weathered crises together. Harrison knew about Ryan's nightmares, about the guilt that haunted him for failing to protect Sarah. The scandal sparked a SEC investigation and sent Ryan Enterprises' stock plummeting. Major clients began pulling their investments, and the media circus threatened to destroy everything Ryan had built. But it wasn't the potential financial ruin that kept him awake at night. It was the realization that perhaps he'd never truly known anyone in his life. In response, Ryan retreated into his penthouse sanctuary. He doubled his security systems, restricted access to his inner circle, and grew increasingly paranoid about others' motives. The man who once prided himself on identifying potential in others now saw only threats and hidden agendas. His executive assistant noticed the changes first: the cancelled meetings, the unanswered calls, the growing collection of empty whiskey bottles in his office trash. The board members whispered about his stability, and rumors of a forced resignation began circulating through the company's corridors. The irony wasn't lost on Ryan. He'd spent his entire life building walls to protect himself, using money and power as mortar. Now, at the pinnacle of his success, those same walls were becoming his prison. The dining room that once hosted lavish business dinners now stood empty save for his solitary meals. The guest rooms that should have echoed with family laughter remained pristine and unused. Each night, as he stood at his penthouse window overlooking the city lights, Ryan contemplated how success had brought him everything except what he truly wanted: connection, trust, family. The empire he'd built felt increasingly hollow, its foundations shaken not just by Harrison's betrayal, but by the growing realization that he'd sacrificed his humanity at the altar of success. But fate has a way of shattering even the strongest fortresses, and Ryan's carefully constructed isolation was about to be breached by an unlikely intruder, a small girl with a mysterious canvas bag who would force him to confront everything he'd spent his life running from. As March winds howled through the concrete canyons of Manhattan, Maxwell Ryan stood at his usual spot by the window, unaware that the universe was about to present him with a chance at redemption, not through money or power, but through an act of kindness he wasn't sure he was still capable of making. Sarah Ryan's ghost haunted the corners of Maxwell's memories like a bittersweet melody. He saw her in old photographs, a gap-toothed 7-year-old with untamed blonde curls and eyes that sparkled with mischief. The system had separated them on a rainy Tuesday, promising it was temporary. That was the last time he'd seen his sister alive. Years later, he learned she'd died in a foster home fire, alone and afraid, while he was struggling through his first semester of college on a hard-won scholarship. The weight of that failure shaped Maxwell into the man he became. Every Christmas he'd set a place for her at his table, a private ritual that his butler, Charles Winchester, respectfully pretended not to notice. The empty chair served as both memorial and motivation, driving him to build something meaningful from their shared tragedy. Charles had been with Maxwell for over a decade, watching his employer's transformation from a driven young entrepreneur to a hardened business titan. At 65, Charles possessed the wisdom of a man who had seen the best and worst of humanity through years of service to wealthy families. His silver hair and impeccable posture gave him an air of authority that even Maxwell respected. Unlike other servants who came and went, Charles stayed, becoming something between a father figure and a conscience to Maxwell. He alone knew about the children's home Maxwell secretly funded in Sarah's name. He understood why his employer spent countless nights researching missing children cases, hoping against hope to find some trace of what really happened to his sister. Sarah's death report had always seemed suspicious to Maxwell. The official investigation cited electrical failure, but certain details didn't add up. Why were the security cameras disabled that night? Why did her personal belongings vanish without a trace? These questions drove Maxwell's obsession with control and security in his own life. Charles watched over Maxwell with paternal concern, noting how Harrison's betrayal had reopened old wounds. He saw the parallel between Sarah's loss and Harrison's disappearance, both leaving Maxwell with unanswered questions and a deepening distrust of human connection. The butler tried to maintain normalcy, ensuring Maxwell ate regularly and didn't completely withdraw from the world. Their dynamic was complex. Charles respected the professional boundaries his position demanded while privately considering Maxwell the son he never had. He'd been there through the triumphs and failures, the late-night panic attacks, and the rare moments of vulnerability when Maxwell would speak of Sarah. The sister's memory lived on in subtle ways throughout the penthouse. Her favorite flower, white lilies, appeared weekly in the foyer. A worn copy of The Secret Garden, the last birthday gift she received from Maxwell, sat in a place of honor in his study. These touches reminded Charles that beneath his employer's stern exterior beat a heart capable of deep love and devastating loss. Sarah would have been 32 this year. Maxwell sometimes imagined the life she might have lived, perhaps married, with children of her own. These thoughts typically sent him deeper into his work, as if success could somehow compensate for his perceived failure to protect her. Charles understood that Maxwell's ruthlessness in business stemmed from a desperate need to control his environment, to prevent anyone else from being hurt under his watch. The butler had witnessed countless potential relationships fall apart because Maxwell couldn't lower his defenses, couldn't risk another loss like Sarah. As Charles moved silently through his daily routines, maintaining the penthouse's pristine order, he often worried that Maxwell's isolation would become permanent. The bitter irony that his employer's wealth and power had only served to wall him off from genuine human connection wasn't lost on the old butler. What Maxwell needed, Charles knew, wasn't another business deal or investment opportunity. It was something to remind him of the young man who had once promised his little sister the world. The child on Maxwell's doorstep couldn't have been more than 10 years old. Her auburn hair, matted with rain and city grime, partially obscured a face that showed signs of both innocence and hardship. The security footage revealed her arrival at 3 a.m., stumbling through the prestigious building's exterior like a wounded bird seeking shelter. The worn canvas bag she clutched seemed disproportionately heavy for her small frame. When Charles first spotted her through the morning security feed, his immediate instinct was to call the authorities. However, something in her demeanor, the way she curled protectively around that mysterious bag, even in sleep, gave him pause. She wasn't sprawled like a typical homeless child, but positioned with an almost deliberate precision directly under the camera's watchful eye. Emily, as they would later learn, was her name, wore clothes that told a contradictory story. Her jeans, though dirty, were once expensive designer labels visible upon closer inspection. Her shoes, scuffed but high quality, suggested a background far removed from the streets. Most striking was a delicate silver locket around her neck, its intricate engraving partially visible beneath layers of grime. When Maxwell finally approached her, accompanied by a cautious Charles, the girl's eyes snapped open with startling alertness. They were an unusual shade of grey-green, holding a depth of understanding that seemed beyond her years. Her first words weren't a plea for help or an apology for trespassing, but rather a statement that would haunt Maxwell for months to come. "You look exactly like she said you would." The canvas bag, which she refused to relinquish even when offered fresh clothes and food, appeared to be her only possession. Its worn fabric bore curious stains and what looked like intentionally sewn patches. Emily handled it with reverence, as though it contained not just belongings but secrets, perhaps even answers to questions Maxwell hadn't thought to ask. Initially, she spoke little, answering questions with careful consideration that suggested coaching rather than natural childhood hesitation. Her table manners, despite obvious hunger, remained impeccable. She held her fork like someone trained in etiquette, yet devoured the food with the desperation of one accustomed to scarcity. Most peculiar were her reactions to certain sounds and movements. The clink of Charles's keys would make her flinch. The ding of the elevator would cause her to seek corners with clear sight lines to all exits. Yet when Maxwell raised his voice during a heated phone call, she showed no fear, only quiet observation. But her drawings, which began appearing mysteriously around the penthouse within days of her arrival, revealed both talent and trauma. Detailed sketches of cityscapes viewed from impossible heights, recurring images of a woman whose face was always obscured, and strangely accurate renderings of Maxwell's building security systems, all executed with preternatural skill for a child her age. Emily's presence created an immediate disruption in the penthouse's carefully maintained order. She moved like a ghost through the spaces, studying everything but disturbing nothing. The only evidence of her existence would be those drawings, appearing like clues in an elaborate puzzle that neither Maxwell nor Charles could fully grasp. Each attempt to uncover her backstory led to more questions. She claimed to be from everywhere, and nowhere spoke of a mother who was gone but watching, and seemed to know details about the building's layout that weren't publicly available. The more they learned about Emily, the more apparent it became that her appearance on Maxwell's doorstep was anything but random. The first signs of tension emerged within hours of Emily's arrival. Charles, ever vigilant of his employer's interests, pulled Maxwell aside with barely concealed concern. "Sir, given recent events, perhaps we should contact Child Services immediately," he suggested, his usual composure strained. "This could be another attempt to exploit your position." Maxwell found himself torn between Charles's pragmatic advice and an inexplicable reluctance to involve authorities. The timing was suspicious, appearing just months after Harrison's betrayal, when the media scrutiny of Ryan Enterprises was at its peak. Yet something in Emily's eyes reminded him painfully of Sarah, carrying the same haunted look his sister had worn in their final moments together. The girl's mysterious behaviors only intensified Charles's suspicions. During her first night in the guest room, security cameras caught her methodically inspecting the windows, testing door locks, and appearing to make notes in a small notebook she extracted from the canvas bag. When questioned about it the next morning, she simply smiled and said she was making sure. Maxwell's executive board reacted with predictable alarm when they learned of their CEO's impromptu house guest. The shareholders are already nervous, Max's CFO warned, during an emergency meeting. Housing an unidentified minor? The optics alone could tank our stock further. The implication was clear in the corporate world. Even charity could be weaponized against you. Emily, meanwhile, demonstrated an uncanny ability to navigate the penthouse's sophisticated security systems. She knew about blind spots in the camera coverage, somehow accessed the private elevator without a keycard, and once casually mentioned the patrol schedule of the building's security team. When Maxwell pressed her about this knowledge, she deflected with the practiced ease of someone much older. Charles documented every suspicious incident in a private log. The girl's apparent knowledge of Maxwell's schedule without being told, her habit of positioning herself to monitor both exits and entrances in any room, the way she seemed to anticipate phone calls seconds before they rang. Most disturbing was her reaction to Harrison's name when it came up in a news report, a subtle but noticeable tensing of her shoulders that suggested recognition. The conflict within Maxwell grew daily. His business instincts screamed that Emily represented a threat, potentially part of an elaborate scheme. Yet his personal instincts, dormant since Sarah's death, urged him to protect this child who seemed both lost and precisely where she intended to be. Adding to the tension was Emily's selective mutism about her past. She could speak eloquently about art, literature, and even basic finance, but any questions about her family or origin met with calculated silence. The only consistent detail she provided was about her mother. "She told me you'd help." When asked who her mother was, Emily would only reply, "Someone who saved you once." Charles's protective instincts warred with his growing fascination with their mysterious guest. He noticed how she arranged her food precisely as Maxwell did, mirroring his habits as if she'd studied them. Her drawings began to feature details of Maxwell's past that weren't public knowledge: a specific park bench where he'd made his first investment deal, the exact pattern of his mother's favorite dress. The situation reached a critical point when Maxwell discovered Emily had accessed his private study during the night. Nothing was missing or disturbed, but she had left a drawing on his desk, a detailed sketch of Sarah, captured exactly as she looked in his last memory of her. The artwork was dated 15 years ago, long before Emily could have been born. This discovery sparked the first heated argument between Maxwell and Charles. "She's not just some lost child," Charles insisted, brandishing the drawing. "No one could know these details unless they'd been watching us for years." Maxwell found himself defending Emily with an intensity that surprised them both, even as his own doubts multiplied. As March drew to a close, the penthouse became a battlefield of unspoken tensions. Emily continued her mysterious routines, Charles documented every suspicious detail, and Maxwell felt increasingly trapped between his instinct to trust and his hard-learned lessons about betrayal. The canvas bag remained Emily's constant companion, its contents unknown but clearly precious enough to risk her life protecting. What none of them realized was that these initial conflicts were merely tremors before an earthquake that would shake their worlds to the foundation, and that the true purpose of Emily's appearance was far more complex than any of them could imagine. Despite the growing tensions, moments of genuine connection began to emerge between Maxwell and Emily, starting in the most unexpected way. One evening, while passing the guest room, he heard soft humming, the same lullaby Sarah used to sing. He found Emily perched by the window, sketching the cityscape with remarkable precision, her small fingers moving with practiced confidence across the paper. The art became their first bridge. Emily's talent was extraordinary, bordering on prodigious. Her drawings captured not just images but emotions: the loneliness in Maxwell's eyes during board meetings, the paternal concern in Charles's stance as he served breakfast, the hidden warmth beneath the penthouse's sterile perfection. Each piece seemed to peel back layers of their carefully constructed facades. One particular drawing stopped Maxwell's heart. It showed a young boy holding a little girl's hand outside a foster home, every detail exactly as he remembered his last day with Sarah, down to the crack in the sidewalk and the pattern of her dress. When he asked Emily how she could possibly know this scene, she simply replied, "Sometimes memories find their way to paper before we understand them." Charles noticed the subtle changes in his employer. Maxwell began taking breakfast in the kitchen instead of his study, drawn by Emily's morning ritual of creating tiny origami animals from napkins. His late-night drinking sessions decreased, replaced by impromptu art lessons where Emily taught him basic sketching techniques. The girl's presence seemed to soften the sharp edges of his grief. Their shared appreciation for structure and order created another unexpected bond. Emily arranged her colored pencils with the same methodical precision Maxwell applied to his business documents. She could spend hours watching him work, occasionally offering surprisingly insightful comments about his investment strategies. "Numbers tell stories too," she once remarked, "just like drawings." And the transformation in Maxwell became evident to his staff. The man who had retreated into isolation after Harrison's betrayal now had a reason to return home at reasonable hours. Emily's questions about his day seemed to rekindle his passion for mentoring, reminiscent of his early career days. Even his public image began to shift as photos of them sharing ice cream in Central Park leaked to social media. And their connection deepened through shared rituals. Every evening, Emily would select a book from Maxwell's library, her choices eerily aligned with his own favorites at her age. They developed a habit of reading together in his study, her curled in Sarah's old reading chair, him pretending not to notice how perfectly she fit there. The empty spaces in the penthouse began to fill with a warmth long absent. Charles watched this evolution with mixed emotions. His protective instincts warred with the undeniable evidence of positive change in Maxwell. The security log still documented Emily's mysterious behaviors, but alongside them grew a collection of moments that spoke to genuine childhood innocence: her delight at discovering the rooftop garden, her concentration while learning to tie a proper Windsor knot from Maxwell. Most revealing were the nightmares. Both Emily and Maxwell suffered from them, their midnight demons seeming to dance to the same dark rhythm. On one particularly bad night, Charles found them in the kitchen at 3 a.m., sharing hot chocolate and quietly discussing the weight of memories too heavy for either to bear alone. The butler noticed they held their mugs the same way, both hands wrapped around, as if absorbing more than just warmth. These connections began rippling outward. Maxwell started taking an interest in childhood education charities, attending fundraisers he'd previously delegated to his PR team. Emily's presence gave him a new perspective on his sister's foundation, shifting its focus from mere memorial to active change. His board members noticed him fighting harder for initiatives benefiting families, even at the cost of short-term profits. In quiet moments, Maxwell caught glimpses of Sarah in Emily's mannerisms: the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when concentrating, her habit of humming while lost in thought. Yet Emily wasn't a replacement for his lost sister. She was a reminder of the person he'd been before loss and betrayal had hardened him. Her presence sparked something he'd thought long extinguished: hope. The canvas bag remained a constant, but its mystery began to feel less threatening. Emily would occasionally share small treasures from it: a smooth river stone, a worn photograph of clouds, a half-finished sketch of a woman's smile. Each item seemed charged with significance, pieces of a puzzle Maxwell wasn't sure he wanted to solve, fearing the answers might shatter this fragile piece they'd found. The media storm broke on a Tuesday morning. Tech billionaire's mystery child scandal or salvation screamed the New York Times headline. Paparazzi materialized outside the building, their cameras trained on every window. Social media exploded with speculation. Was Emily a secret love child? A publicity stunt? Part of an elaborate corporate takeover? Maxwell's PR team scrambled to contain the situation, but Emily's presence had already ignited public imagination. Liberal outlets praised him for showing compassion in an age of corporate greed. Conservative media questioned his motives, hinting at impropriety. A single man housing an unknown minor raises serious concerns, declared one prominent commentator, ignoring Maxwell's spotless record of philanthropic work. Social services arrived unannounced, led by a stern-faced woman named Victoria Blackwood. Her interrogation was rigorous. Why hadn't Maxwell reported Emily immediately? What were his intentions? Did he realize the legal implications? Through it all, Emily maintained an eerie calm, answering questions with practiced precision while revealing nothing of substance about her past. The pressure mounted when Emily started attending the prestigious Bradford Academy. Her first day highlighted the stark contrasts in their worlds. Other parents whispered and pointed. Children, parroting their parents' prejudices, either avoided her or peppered her with invasive questions. Yet Emily navigated the social minefield with unusual grace, displaying a maturity that only deepened the mystery surrounding her. The academic challenges emerged in unexpected ways. Emily excelled in subjects requiring analytical thinking and creativity, but struggled with basic historical facts and cultural references. Her teachers reported that she seemed to possess knowledge far beyond her years in some areas while having puzzling gaps in others. When asked about her previous schooling, she would only say, "I had different teachers." Charles watched with growing concern as Maxwell's dedication to Emily began affecting his business relationships. Board meetings were rescheduled around school events. Important client dinners were cut short to help with homework. The butler observed his employer's priorities shifting, wondering if this transformation would ultimately prove destructive or redemptive. The situation intensified when Emily began experiencing anxiety attacks at school. They seemed triggered by specific events: fire drills, visiting photographers, even certain delivery trucks parking outside. During these episodes, she would clutch her canvas bag and whisper numbers in a pattern Maxwell recognized from his own panic attacks years ago. Maxwell's attempts to protect Emily from public scrutiny backfired spectacularly when he confronted a photographer outside her school. The ensuing scuffle made headlines: "Tech Titan attacks press, what is he hiding?" The incident forced the board to call an emergency meeting, where Maxwell's leadership was openly questioned for the first time in years. Legal complications multiplied as child advocacy groups demanded investigation into Emily's custody status. Maxwell's lawyers advised him to distance himself until the situation could be properly managed. Instead, he hired additional security and withdrew further from public life, his protective instincts overriding business sense. Emily's response to the chaos was perhaps most puzzling of all. She maintained her routines with methodical precision, seemingly unaffected by the storm around her. Her drawings became more frequent and detailed, often featuring scenes from Maxwell's past that she couldn't possibly know: business meetings from years ago, private moments with Sarah, conversations with Harrison before his betrayal. The pressure reached a breaking point when an anonymous source leaked Emily's school records, or rather, the complete absence of them. No birth certificate, no previous enrollments, no medical history. It was as if she had materialized out of thin air. The media frenzy redoubled, with speculation ranging from international kidnapping to corporate espionage. But through it all, the bond between Maxwell and Emily deepened. Their evening ritual of reading together became a sanctuary from the outside chaos. He found himself sharing stories of Sarah, secrets he'd never told anyone else. Emily listened with an intensity that suggested more than mere childish curiosity, occasionally offering insights that left Maxwell wondering who was really comforting whom. As spring progressed, the penthouse became both fortress and prison. Maxwell's empire showed signs of strain, his attention divided between protecting Emily and preserving his life's work. Charles maintained his vigilant documentation while privately admitting that Emily's presence had awakened something long dormant in his employer, a capacity for unconditional love that no amount of wealth could buy. What none of them could foresee was that these challenges were merely preludes to a much larger storm, one that would force them to question everything they thought they knew about family, loyalty, and the true price of redemption. This story of unexpected bonds and redemption deserves a moment of recognition. Be the first to leave a like if you believe in second chances. The first crack in Emily's carefully constructed narrative appeared during a routine security review. Charles, meticulously comparing timestamps from different cameras, noticed a pattern that defied explanation. Before arriving at Maxwell's doorstep, Emily had been captured circling the building for 3 consecutive days, studying entry points and security rotations with military precision. More disturbing was her apparent communication with someone outside the camera's range, subtle hand signals that suggested coordination rather than random movement. The revelation sent Maxwell into a spiral of doubt. He began secretly reviewing Emily's drawings, noting how they progressively revealed intimate details of his life conversations held in supposedly secure locations, private meetings with his legal team, even the exact configuration of his personal safe. The level of detail suggested long-term surveillance, far beyond what a child her age could accomplish alone. Emily's school interviews yielded more inconsistencies. When asked about her favorite childhood books, she referenced titles that wouldn't be published for another year. Her knowledge of historical events contained anachronisms that only became apparent upon careful analysis. Most tellingly, her accounts of her mother changed subtly, with each telling the woman was a teacher, then an artist, then a businesswoman, each version tailored to elicit maximum sympathy from different listeners. Maxwell hired private investigators discreetly, their reports painting a disturbing picture. No record existed of any child matching Emily's description in the National Missing Persons database. Her fingerprints yielded no matches, and facial recognition software suggested her appearance might have been deliberately altered, subtle changes to prevent identification. The canvas bag became a source of growing paranoia. Late at night, Maxwell noticed Emily removing and replacing items, each movement precise and practiced. Through high-resolution security footage, Charles identified what appeared to be high-tech surveillance equipment disguised as children's toys. The bag itself showed signs of professional modification, hidden compartments and reinforced sections that suggested military or intelligence agency origins. But Emily's nightmares, initially viewed as trauma responses, took on new significance. She would cry out names and coordinates in her sleep, information that corresponded to classified Ryan Enterprises projects. Episodes of anxiety at school coincided perfectly with major company board meetings and confidential negotiations. The final straw came when Maxwell's security team intercepted a coded transmission from Emily's room. The signal pattern matched those used by the same offshore accounts Harrison had used to embezzle company funds. When confronted with this evidence, Emily's response was chilling in its simplicity. "Everything I've done was to protect you, even the lies." Charles advocated for immediate intervention, but Maxwell found himself paralyzed by conflicting emotions. The rational part of his mind recognized the threat, yet his heart remembered the genuine tears she'd shed while reading Sarah's favorite book, the unguarded moments of childhood joy that couldn't have been faked. Even as evidence mounted of her deception, he couldn't reconcile it with the child who had brought warmth back into his life. The investigation revealed more troubling connections. Emily's artistic style matched that of classified CIA training programs for young operatives. Her behavioral patterns aligned with known protocols for deep cover agents. Even her physical mannerisms, the way she entered rooms, how she handled utensils, suggested years of specialized conditioning. Maxwell's own research uncovered a disturbing possibility. 10 years ago, a classified project code named Guardian Angel had been shut down after ethical concerns were raised. The project's goal: training orphan children as long-term surveillance operatives, using their inherent innocence as cover. The project's primary funding had come through shell companies linked to Harrison's embezzlement scheme. The weight of these discoveries took its toll on the household. Charles began double-checking every security measure, jumping at shadows. Maxwell withdrew into his study for hours, drinking more heavily than he had since Harrison's betrayal. Emily, sensing their growing suspicion, became more withdrawn, her drawings now darker, filled with hidden meanings and warnings. Yet even as the lies unraveled, new questions emerged. If Emily was part of a larger conspiracy, why choose such an elaborate scheme? Why spend months building emotional connections if simple corporate espionage was the goal? And most puzzling of all, why did her lies seem designed not to harm Maxwell, but to protect him from some greater unseen threat? As spring turned to summer, the penthouse became a stage for an elaborate dance of truth and deception. Every interaction was analyzed, every word scrutinized for hidden meaning. Maxwell found himself longing for the simpler days when Emily was just a mysterious child on his doorstep, even as he knew those days had been built on carefully constructed lies. What none of them realized was that the truth, when it finally emerged, would make Emily's deceptions seem like mere shadows of a much darker reality, one that would force Maxwell to question everything he thought he knew about his past, his present, and the true meaning of family. Emily's hoarding behaviors became impossible to ignore as summer approached. The housekeeping staff reported finding caches of food hidden throughout the penthouse energy bars, wrapped in waterproof bags, dried fruits sealed in vacuum-packed containers, bottled water strategically placed near exit points. Each stash was organized with military precision, suggesting not the desperate hoarding of a formerly homeless child, but the calculated preparation of someone expecting catastrophe. Nightmares plagued both Maxwell and Emily with increasing frequency. Her screams would echo through the penthouse at 3 a.m. Always the same time, always accompanied by the same cryptic warnings: "They're coming for the evidence," or "the numbers don't align." Maxwell's own dreams became haunted by Sarah's face morphing into Emily's, both of them trying to tell him something crucial just beyond his comprehension. Charles discovered Emily's journal hidden behind a loose panel in her bathroom, pages filled with what appeared to be surveillance notes on Maxwell's daily routines, but interspersed with desperate personal entries: "Must protect him. Mother said he's the key. Running out of time." The methodical observations of a trained operative clashed jarringly with the emotional outpourings of a frightened child. Trust between them eroded like sandcastles against tide. Maxwell caught Emily photographing his private documents, while she noticed him having her drawings analyzed by forensic experts. Their once comfortable silences became charged with unspoken accusations. Even their shared reading time felt performative, both watching each other for signs of deception. The penthouse staff divided into factions. Some, like the head chef Maria, fiercely defended Emily, pointing to her genuine displays of childish joy and vulnerability. Others, led by the new head of security, saw her as a sophisticated security breach waiting to explode. Charles straddled both camps, his loyalty to Maxwell warring with his growing paternal feelings toward Emily. More disturbing were Emily's episodes of apparent dissociation. During these moments, her entire demeanor would change, posture straightening, vocabulary becoming clinical, eyes taking on a calculating hardness that belonged on a seasoned operative rather than a child. These episodes often coincided with security breaches in Maxwell's company, though no direct connection could be proven. The canvas bag remained her constant companion, but now Maxwell noticed how she positioned it differently depending on who was in the room, always within reach, its opening oriented toward potential threats. X-ray scans revealed sophisticated shielding within its lining, preventing detailed analysis of its contents. When questioned about it, Emily's responses became increasingly defensive, even hostile. The community division deepened as rumors spread. Parents at Bradford Academy whispered about Emily's inconsistent background stories, her advanced knowledge in certain areas contrasting sharply with bizarre gaps in basic childhood experiences. Some students reported seeing her having intense conversations in foreign languages with unknown adults near the school grounds. Maxwell's own behavior became increasingly erratic. He installed additional security cameras, then paranoidly checked them for signs of tampering. He began testing Emily's food for toxins, while simultaneously feeling guilty for such extreme suspicion of a child. His board members noticed his distraction during meetings, his tendency to check his phone constantly for updates from the penthouse security team. The psychological toll manifested in subtle ways. Emily's artwork shifted from detailed cityscapes to abstract pieces filled with hidden symbols and recurring motifs: black birds, broken clocks, maze-like patterns that seemed to hold coded messages. Maxwell stopped sleeping in his bedroom, preferring the study where he could monitor security feeds throughout the night. Charles documented everything meticulously, his logs revealing a household walking a tightrope between normalcy and paranoia. He noted how Emily would recite seemingly random numbers while stress baking at midnight, numbers that correlated with classified project codes from Maxwell's past ventures. The butler observed their elaborate dance of mutual surveillance, Emily monitoring Maxwell's calls while he tracked her internet usage. The breaking point came during a thunderstorm that knocked out power to the building. Emily's immediate reaction, dropping into a defensive stance, reaching for her bag with practiced efficiency, revealed years of tactical training. Yet moments later, she showed genuine terror of the lightning, seeking comfort in Maxwell's arms like any frightened child would. This duality tormented Maxwell. Every sign of deception was matched by demonstrations of authentic emotional attachment. Her detailed knowledge of his security systems was counterbalanced by her genuine grief when discussing her mother. Even her lies seemed designed to protect, rather than harm, though the question remained: protect him from what? As trust corroded, their relationship evolved into something more complex than simple deception or truth. They became like two chess players, each seeing multiple moves ahead, yet bound by genuine affection that neither could fully deny or trust. The penthouse became a stage where every gesture, every word, carried multiple layers of meaning and possibility. What they didn't realize was that this elaborate dance of trust and suspicion was merely the prelude to revelations that would shake their world to its foundations, truths more complex than either of them could imagine. The ultimatum arrived on Maxwell's desk early Monday morning, a thick manila envelope containing photos, documents, and a simple note: remove the girl or watch your empire crumble. The evidence inside painted a damning picture: Emily's connections to known intelligence operatives, surveillance equipment found in her belongings, and most disturbingly, proof that her presence was somehow linked to Harrison's disappearance. Maxwell's legal team advised immediate action. The liability is astronomical, his head counsel warned. If the media discovers you're harboring a potential foreign agent, especially a minor, the shareholders will revolt. The board had already called an emergency meeting, their patience wearing thin with the constant scandals surrounding their CEO's mysterious ward. The decision weighed heavily on Maxwell as he watched Emily through the security feed. She sat in the library, meticulously drawing what appeared to be blueprints of the building's ventilation system, while simultaneously completing advanced calculus homework. The duality of her existence, both innocent child and trained operative, had never seemed more stark. Child services increased their pressure, backed by anonymous tips about Emily's suspicious behaviors. Victoria Blackwood returned, armed with court orders and concerns about Maxwell's mental stability. "Your judgment is compromised," she stated flatly. "This obsession with protecting her despite mounting evidence of deception suggests you're not thinking clearly." Charles found Maxwell in his study that night, surrounded by Emily's drawings and surveillance reports. So he began gently. Sometimes protecting someone means being strong enough to let them go. But even as he spoke, both men remembered Sarah and how letting go had led to irreversible tragedy. The company's stock plummeted as rumors spread about corporate espionage. Major clients began pulling their investments, citing security concerns. Maxwell's board presented him with their own ultimatum: either Emily goes, or they would force a vote of no confidence. The empire he'd built over decades teetered on the brink of collapse. Yet every time Maxwell steeled himself to make the rational decision, something held him back. Perhaps it was the way Emily left origami cranes on his desk after particularly difficult board meetings. Or how she hummed Sarah's lullaby while helping Charles with dinner. Or maybe it was the undeniable fact that despite her deceptions, she had brought more life and purpose to his existence than all his wealth ever had. The decision crystallized during another late-night thunderstorm. Maxwell found Emily in the kitchen, not hiding or monitoring security feeds, but simply making hot chocolate the exact way Sarah used to, with tiny marshmallows arranged in a perfect circle. "I know you've discovered some of the truth," she said quietly, sliding him a mug, "but not all lies are meant to harm. Some are shields protecting something more important than pride or profit." That night, Maxwell made his choice. He called an emergency press conference, shocking everyone by announcing his temporary step down as CEO to focus on family matters. He transferred significant portions of his wealth into secure accounts, knowing the board would likely force him out completely. Then he did something that surprised even Charles. He filed official adoption papers for Emily. The backlash was immediate and severe. Share prices crashed, business partners fled, and media outlets painted him as either a fool or a madman. Anonymous threats began arriving at the penthouse, forcing them to upgrade security yet again. Maxwell's carefully constructed world of power and influence began crumbling around him. Emily's reaction to his decision was complex. She spent hours staring at the adoption papers, running her fingers over his signature as if checking for forgery. When she finally spoke, her words carried weight beyond her years. "You chose this knowing it could be a trap. Knowing I might be your destruction. Why?" Maxwell's response came from a place of truth he hadn't accessed since Sarah's death, because sometimes saving someone else is the only way to save yourself. The words hung between them, acknowledging both the risk and the potential redemption in his choice. Charles watched this transformation with a mixture of pride and concern. He'd served Maxwell long enough to recognize watershed moments, and this was certainly one. The butler quietly began preparing for the siege he knew would come from media, authorities, and whoever was really behind Emily's presence in their lives. As spring moved into summer, the penthouse became their fortress against a world that didn't understand their unconventional bond. Maxwell's choice had set in motion events that would either destroy everything he built or lead to something far more valuable than mere wealth or power. What none of them could predict was how this decision would unravel a conspiracy reaching back decades, forcing them to confront truths about loyalty, sacrifice, and the real meaning of family. The game they were playing had rules none of them fully understood, and Maxwell's choice to protect Emily was just the opening move in a much larger battle. The trail began with a single photograph discovered in the bottom of Emily's canvas bag, a young woman in a lab coat, her face partially obscured, standing next to a younger Maxwell Ryan at a company event 15 years ago. The date stamp placed it just weeks before Harrison's first investment in Ryan Enterprises. Written on the back in faded ink, Project Guardian Angel must never reach Phase 2. Maxwell's investigation started in the company archives, digging through years of redacted files and classified projects. The deeper he dug, the more connections emerged. Harrison's embezzled funds hadn't simply disappeared into offshore accounts. They'd been systematically channeled into a network of research facilities, all specializing in behavioral modification and child psychology. Emily's mother's diary, carefully hidden within the canvas bag's lining, revealed a disturbing narrative. Dr. Catherine Sullivan had been a brilliant behavioral scientist, recruited for what she believed was a revolutionary child development program. Her entries traced a growing horror as she discovered the truth: they weren't developing children, they were weaponizing them. The conditioning starts so young. One entry read, "They call it enhanced perception training, but we're creating human surveillance devices. These children, they see everything, remember everything. And now they want to move beyond observation to active intervention. I can't let them reach Phase 2. Charles's methodical investigation of Emily's belongings yielded more clues. Her clothes contained manufacturer tags from companies that were fronts for intelligence operations. The silver locket around her neck, when finally opened with a specialized tool, contained a microchip with encrypted data. Even her school books had barely perceptible marks, indicating classified document tracking codes. The connection to Ryan Enterprises became clearer as Maxwell uncovered old board meeting minutes. Harrison had pushed for heavy investment in youth education initiatives, seemingly charitable endeavors that now appeared to be covers for recruitment centers. The same centers where Sarah had been placed after their separation. Emily's drawings took on new significance under forensic analysis. What appeared to be simple architectural sketches contained embedded information about security vulnerabilities in major corporate and government facilities. Her street scenes included precise angles for surveillance camera placement. Even her abstract pieces, when properly decoded, revealed coordinates and contact protocols. Dr. Sullivan's final project notes, recovered from a hidden server, painted a chilling picture of Project Guardian Angel's true purpose. They're not just training these children to observe and report, she wrote. They're creating deep cover assets who can infiltrate and influence at the highest levels. The emotional manipulation training alone is beyond anything previously documented. They can forge genuine connections while maintaining completely separate operational objectives. But Maxwell's private investigators tracked the money trail through a labyrinth of shell companies and fake charities. Each path led back to a shadowy organization known only as the Institute, the same entity mentioned in Dr. Sullivan's diary. Their operational signature matched the protocols Emily unconsciously displayed in moments of stress. The most disturbing discovery came from analyzing Emily's blood work, secretly collected from her regular health checkups. Trace elements suggested long-term exposure to experimental behavioral modification compounds, the same compounds Ryan Enterprises had unknowingly helped develop through their pharmaceutical subsidiaries. Charles uncovered a pattern in Emily's seemingly random anxiety attacks. They corresponded perfectly with dates when major decisions about Project Guardian Angel had been made years ago. Her body appeared to be physically responding to temporal markers programmed into her subconscious, suggesting a level of psychological conditioning far beyond current known capabilities. The investigation led Maxwell to a retired security guard who had worked at one of the research facilities. His testimony was chilling. They would bring in these kids, real young, all orphans or lost in the system, bright kids, but damaged somehow. Perfect for molding. They called it educational enrichment. But the training, it wasn't natural. No child should be able to memorize and analyze information like that. Emily's school records, when cross-referenced with Project Guardian Angel data, revealed she had been part of the program's final cohort, children selected for their exceptional cognitive abilities and lack of family connections. Her apparent age conflicted with multiple documents, suggesting possible manipulation of official records to hide her true identity. As Maxwell pieced together the puzzle, a horrifying possibility emerged. The project hadn't been shut down due to ethical concerns as officially claimed. It had evolved, gone deeper underground. Emily's presence in his life couldn't be coincidence. She represented either a warning or a threat from forces he was only beginning to comprehend. Dr. Sullivan's final diary entry, dated just days before her alleged death, seemed to anticipate current events. If you're reading this, MR. It means they've initiated contingency protocols. Emily is both messenger and message. Trust her fear, it's the only genuine thing they couldn't program out of her. The rest is layers of truth and deception so interwoven that even she can't always tell the difference. The canvas bag's hidden compartments contained one final revelation, a coded message from Dr. Sullivan to her daughter: remember your true mission. Protect him, even from himself. Some lies are shields, others are swords. Your heart will know the difference. Maxwell sat in his study, surrounded by the evidence of a conspiracy spanning decades, and realized that every answer only led to more questions. Emily was both victim and agent, both genuine child and trained operative, both potential savior and possible threat. And somewhere in this web of deception lay the truth about Sarah's death and Harrison's betrayal. The real question wasn't whether he could trust Emily, it was whether anyone could truly escape the programming of their past. As he watched her sleep through the security monitor, clutching her canvas bag like a lifeline, Maxwell understood that unraveling this mystery might cost him everything he had left, including the one thing he hadn't known he was missing: love. The first real threat arrived disguised as a routine business proposal. Thomas Sterling, Maxwell's primary competitor, launched a hostile takeover bid while simultaneously leaking documents suggesting Ryan Enterprises had knowingly funded illegal behavioral experiments on children. The stock price plummeted 40% in a single day, triggering automatic selling protocols that threatened to destroy the company. Media vultures circled the penthouse with increasing aggression. Tech Titan's child experiment scandal screamed the headlines. Photos of Emily appeared on national news networks, her face partially blurred but recognizable enough to spark public outrage. Anonymous sources claimed she was evidence of ongoing human rights violations, a living proof of corporate exploitation of vulnerable children. Emily's school life became a battlefield. Parents demanded her removal, citing security concerns. Cruel whispers followed her through hallways. Experiment freaks by. The breaking point came when a group of students cornered her during lunch, demanding to see what was in her canvas bag. The resulting incident sent 3 children to the hospital with unexplained injuries, though security cameras mysteriously malfunctioned during those exact minutes. Death threats began arriving at the penthouse, some targeting Maxwell, others Emily. Each bore hallmarks of professional surveillance, references to private conversations, details about their daily routines, photos taken from seemingly impossible angles. Charles tripled security, but even he couldn't shake the feeling that the threats were coming from inside their fortified walls. Anonymous hackers targeted Ryan Enterprises systems, releasing snippets of classified research data. Each leak seemed carefully orchestrated to paint Maxwell as the architect of a massive human trafficking operation disguised as charitable youth programs. Board members began receiving personal threats, pressure mounting for them to distance themselves from their embattled CEO. Sterling's attacks grew bolder. His private investigators harassed penthouse staff, offering substantial bribes for information about Emily. Several employees disappeared, only to resurface days later with no memory of their absences but with hefty offshore bank accounts. The message was clear: everyone had a price, and Sterling was willing to pay it. The FBI launched an investigation, but their questions suggested they were more interested in Emily than in the threats against her. Their agents carried files bearing the same classification codes found in Dr. Sullivan's diary. During one particularly tense interview, Emily switched to perfect Mandarin, discussing classified military protocols that left the agents visibly shaken. Maxwell's former allies began withdrawing support. Business partners cancelled contracts, citing compliance concerns. Charitable foundations demanded the return of donations. Even his most loyal board members started quietly selling their shares. But the empire he'd built over decades was being systematically dismantled, brick by billion-dollar brick. Emily's behavior became increasingly erratic as the pressure mounted. She spent hours in her room, writing complex mathematical equations that, when decoded, appeared to be contingency escape plans. Her drawings took on a frantic quality, filled with hidden warnings about imminent threats. During one particularly bad episode, she barricaded herself in the panic room, claiming they were coming to initiate Phase 2. The public narrative spun further out of control. Social media exploded with conspiracy theories about genetic experimentation and child soldiers. Protesters gathered outside Ryan Enterprises offices worldwide, their signs bearing Emily's school photo alongside images of other missing children. Each demonstration seemed professionally organized, funded by untraceable sources. Legal challenges multiplied exponentially. Child welfare organizations filed lawsuits. Former employees came forward with seemingly coordinated stories of witnessing suspicious activities involving children at company facilities. Every allegation, though unprovable, added to the growing public perception of Maxwell as a monster hiding behind a philanthropic facade. Sterling's final move was devastatingly personal. He orchestrated a primetime television interview with a woman claiming to be Emily's biological mother, her story crafted to perfectly align with public records, while contradicting everything Emily had told Maxwell. The interview went viral, sparking demands for Emily's immediate removal from the penthouse. Charles discovered surveillance devices in every room, some so sophisticated they defied current technology. More disturbing were signs that Emily had known about them all along, her seemingly random furniture rearrangements actually designed to optimize their coverage. When confronted, she simply said, "Sometimes the watchers need to be watched." The pressure began affecting Maxwell physically. Insomnia led to exhaustion. Paranoia crept into every decision. He started seeing patterns in random events, hidden meanings in casual conversations. His own security team advised him to consider placing Emily in protective custody, though none could say who would protect her from the protectors. Emily's night terrors escalated, her screams now including military coordinates and operation codes that match classified Ryan Enterprises projects from decades ago. During her lucid moments, she worked obsessively on what appeared to be a massive pattern recognition algorithm, using her drawings to map connections only she could see. The canvas bag remained their greatest mystery and potential liability. X-ray scans revealed its contents constantly changed, though Emily never seemed to add or remove anything. But each new threat appeared to trigger automatic reorganization of its contents, like some sort of autonomous defense mechanism responding to invisible dangers. As autumn approached, the penthouse became both sanctuary and prison. Every delivery was scrutinized, every visitor questioned, every communication encrypted. Maxwell watched his world shrink to a fortress of his own making, all to protect a child who might be his salvation or his destruction, or perhaps both. What none of them realized was that these growing threats were merely a prelude, a carefully orchestrated pressure campaign designed to force their hands. The real danger wasn't in the visible attacks, but in the unseen forces manipulating events from the shadows, pushing them all toward a confrontation that had been decades in the making. Emily's artistic development became the first visible sign of her transformation. Her drawings evolved from simple surveillance records to complex emotional narratives, each piece revealing layers of both her training and her emerging humanity. She began creating massive murals in her room, connecting events from Maxwell's past with current threats, using art to process her dual nature as both protector and potential threat. Maxwell's metamorphosis was equally profound but more subtle. The ruthless business titan, who once valued control above all else, learned to embrace uncertainty. During board meetings, he now questioned not just profit margins but ethical implications. His late-night drinking sessions transformed into strategy planning with Emily, their different perspectives creating solutions neither could have conceived alone. Charles witnessed their collective evolution with a mixture of wonder and concern. His rigid butler's demeanor softened as he found himself part of their unconventional family unit. The security logs he once kept meticulously now included personal observations about Emily's favorite foods, Maxwell's improved sleep patterns, and the growing warmth in their once sterile home. The penthouse itself reflected their changes. Emily's art appeared in previously austere corridors. Maxwell's locked office door remained open more often than not. Even the security measures became less about keeping people out and more about protecting what they'd built together. The fortress had become a home, albeit an unusually well-guarded one. Emily's emotional growth manifested in unexpected ways. She began expressing genuine childlike joy while maintaining her operational awareness, laughing at cartoons while simultaneously monitoring security feeds, enjoying ice cream trips that doubled as surveillance detection routes. Her ability to integrate both sides of herself became both remarkable and heartbreaking to witness. Maxwell's priorities shifted dramatically. Board members were shocked when he redirected company resources toward investigating child trafficking networks, using his business acumen to dismantle the very systems that had created Emily. His wealth, once a shield against emotional involvement, became a tool for protection and healing. Their relationship deepened through shared trauma and recovery. During thunderstorms, they would sit together in the panic room, not out of fear but choice, sharing stories and building trust. Emily taught Maxwell about surveillance techniques, while he taught her about normal childhood experiences they both had missed. Each lesson became an exercise in mutual healing. Charles found his role evolving beyond service to become something akin to family. His morning security briefings included updates on Emily's homework and Maxwell's stress levels. The butler's quarters, once a symbol of professional distance, became a neutral ground where all three could drop their guards and simply be themselves. The canvas bag, still a source of mystery, became a metaphor for their growth. Emily slowly allowed Maxwell to help her organize its contents, each shared secret building trust. The bag's hidden compartments, once filled with surveillance gear, now also contained normal childhood treasure: seashells from beach trips, ticket stubs from movies, photographs of their growing family. Maxwell's public persona transformed from corporate shark to protective father figure. During press conferences, he spoke with newfound authenticity about second chances and redemption. His employees noted how he now took time to learn their names, ask about their families, implement policies that reflected his evolving values. Emily's school performance reflected her internal changes. While maintaining her exceptional academic record, she began forming genuine friendships. Her ability to connect with others while keeping necessary secrets showed a maturity beyond her years. Teachers noted how she helped struggling students, using her pattern recognition skills to develop unique tutoring methods. The penthouse staff witnessed the most intimate signs of their growth. Emily no longer hid food but helped plan meals with the chef. Maxwell started joining them for staff dinners, breaking down hierarchical barriers. Even security protocols relaxed enough to allow for movie nights and holiday celebrations, though Emily's strategic placement of sensors never wavered. Charles's daily reports became chronicles of healing. He documented Emily's first genuine laugh, Maxwell's first time falling asleep during a movie, their first argument that ended in honest communication rather than tactical withdrawal. The butler found himself writing less about security breaches and more about breakthrough moments of trust. Their collective growth attracted different kinds of attention. Child psychologists sought to study their unique bond. Business schools analyzed Maxwell's shifting corporate philosophy. Security experts puzzled over how they'd achieve balance between protection and normalcy. Their story began inspiring others to question the boundaries between duty and love. Emily's artwork captured their evolution most poignantly. Her latest mural spanned her bedroom wall, a complex timeline showing their journey from suspicion to trust, from isolation to connection. Within the detailed scenes, observers could spot surveillance cameras transformed into stars, security protocols softened into family traditions, a fortress becoming a sanctuary. Maxwell's own transformation appeared in subtle ways: family photos appearing on his desk, bedtime stories becoming part of his evening routine, business decisions now filtered through the lens of their shared values. The man who once trusted only in wealth and power learned to value the strength found in vulnerability. The changes rippled through every aspect of their lives. Family movie nights included both tactical awareness exercises and genuine popcorn fights. Holiday celebrations combined security protocols with real joy. They had created something unique, a family unit that acknowledged both their unusual circumstances and their very human need for connection. As autumn deepened into winter, their growth continued to surprise even them. Emily's nightmares decreased, replaced by dreams she willingly shared. Maxwell's paranoia evolved into calculated caution balanced with optimism. Charles found himself planning not just security measures but birthday parties and family outings. None of them could have predicted how their forced collaboration would transform into genuine attachment, how survival instincts would evolve into love, how a temporary safe house would become a true home. Their individual growth had intertwined to create something stronger than their training or trauma, a family forged in the crucible of shared secrets and mutual protection. The truth exploded into their lives on a quiet Sunday morning when Emily's canvas bag finally yielded its ultimate secret. While organizing her art supplies, Maxwell accidentally triggered a hidden mechanism, revealing a false bottom containing a steel case. Inside lay a single USB drive and a handwritten note to MR. The truth about Sarah. Play only when you're ready to lose everything you think you know. Emily found him frozen in his study, the drive untouched before him. Her reaction confirmed what he had begun to suspect. She'd known about it all along, waiting for this moment. "Mom said you'd find it when you were ready," she whispered, her trained composure cracking for the first time. She said the truth would either save us both or destroy everything. The video began with Dr. Catherine Sullivan's face, recorded 15 years ago. "Maxwell, if you're watching this, I'm already dead, and Emily has completed her primary mission reaching you." She explained how she'd worked for the Institute, initially developing childhood education programs that evolved into something darker. "We were creating perfect observers, children who could process and retain information beyond normal human capacity. But that was just the beginning." The revelation hit like a physical blow. Sarah hadn't died in that foster home fire. She'd been selected for Project Guardian Angel, her presumed death providing the perfect cover. Dr. Sullivan had been her handler, watching as Sarah displayed extraordinary abilities that made her the program's star pupil. "Your sister became everything they wanted," Catherine continued, "but she never lost her humanity. That was her gift and ultimately her downfall." Maxwell's hands shook as Catherine revealed how Sarah had discovered the Institute's true intentions. They weren't just creating observers, they were developing a network of deeply embedded agents, children programmed to infiltrate and influence the highest levels of power. Sarah had tried to expose the truth, gathering evidence, planning to rescue other children, but she'd underestimated how far the Institute would go to protect their investment. The video shifted to security footage. Sarah, now a young woman, breaking into a facility, downloading files. Her movements showed the same tactical precision Emily displayed, the same hyper-awareness of camera angles and security protocols. The footage ended with muzzle flashes, Sarah's body falling, Catherine's voice breaking as she narrated the scene. "But Sarah's death wasn't meaningless," Catherine continued. "She managed to transfer the files to me, exposing the entire operation. I knew they'd kill me too, but I had time to prepare. I chose Emily, the youngest and most gifted of our subjects, and began programming her with a new mission to protect you, Maxwell. And ultimately to finish what Sarah started." Emily sat silently as the truth about her own role unfolded. Catherine had spent years preparing her, implanting both combat training and genuine emotional connections to Maxwell through detailed studies of his life. The canvas bag contained not just surveillance equipment but proof of the Institute's crimes, insurance against discovery, and the key to bringing down the entire operation. The most staggering revelation came last. Harrison's betrayal had been orchestrated by the Institute. They needed Maxwell distracted, vulnerable, ready to form an emotional attachment to a mysterious child. Emily's appearance at his doorstep wasn't chance, it was the culmination of years of planning, a gambit designed by Catherine and Sarah to place their most valuable asset in position to protect their primary target. "Your sister died trying to expose the truth," Catherine's final message declared. Emily carries that legacy, along with something else. She's Sarah's daughter, Maxwell, your niece. The Institute doesn't know we hid her existence, using their own protocols against them. She's both their perfect creation and their potential destruction. And now you have a choice to make. The video ended, leaving Maxwell and Emily in stunned silence. The weight of their true connection hung between them, uncle and niece, bound by blood and conspiracy, each carrying pieces of Sarah's legacy. Emily's perfect recall, her tactical training, her artistic talent that so resembled Sarah's as everything took on new meaning. Charles found them hours later, still in the study, Maxwell holding Emily as she finally allowed herself to cry like the child she partly was. The butler watched as years of carefully constructed barriers crumbled, replaced by something stronger: the truth of their connection, the weight of their shared purpose, the responsibility of continuing Sarah's fight. The revelation transformed their dynamic instantly. Maxwell saw Sarah in every aspect of Emily now: her determination, her capacity for love despite her training, her innate drive to protect others. Emily, freed from maintaining her cover, began sharing detailed memories of her mother and her training, helping Maxwell understand the sister he'd lost and found again through her daughter. But even as they embraced their newfound family bond, both recognized the danger this knowledge brought. The Institute would kill to keep these secrets buried. Their enemies would redouble their efforts once they realized the true nature of Emily's presence in Maxwell's life. The war Sarah had died fighting was about to escalate, with her daughter and brother now on the front lines. As dawn broke over the city, Maxwell made a silent promise to both Sarah and Emily. He would finish what his sister started, protect her daughter, and bring down the organization that had torn their family apart. The cost no longer mattered. This was about legacy, justice, and the unshakable bonds of family that even the Institute's conditioning couldn't break. The attack on Ryan Enterprises began with surgical precision at 9 a.m. Monday morning. Trading algorithms went haywire, triggering massive sell-offs across all company holdings. Within hours, shares plummeted 60%, wiping billions from the company's market value. Emergency board meetings descended into chaos as accusations flew and longtime allies turned on each other. Thomas Sterling emerged as the orchestrator of the hostile takeover, but Maxwell now recognized the familiar patterns of the Institute's manipulation. Sterling was merely a puppet, his recent business decisions showing the telltale signs of external control that Emily had been trained to recognize. The attack wasn't just financial, it was a message: they knew the truth had been discovered. Maxwell's private banking network collapsed next. Offshore accounts were frozen, emergency funds disappeared, and credit lines were suddenly revoked. The financial noose tightened with breathtaking efficiency, cutting off access to the resources he'd need to protect Emily and continue Sarah's mission. Even his most trusted financial advisors seemed helpless against this coordinated assault. The board's emergency session turned into a bloodbath. Documents mysteriously appeared revealing Maxwell's recent investigations into Project Guardian Angel, twisted to suggest he had been actively participating in child exploitation. Board members he'd known for decades now looked at him with disgust, their minds poisoned by the Institute's carefully crafted narrative. Emily's tactical training proved invaluable as they watched their financial empire crumble. She identified patterns in the attacks, predicting each move seconds before it happened. "They're using our own protection protocols against us," she explained, recognizing the algorithms she'd been taught to deploy. "This isn't just about money, they're isolating us, cutting off every escape route." The media assault intensified, with coordinated exposes appearing across major news outlets. Anonymous sources leaked documents suggesting Ryan Enterprises had been a front for human trafficking operations for years. Photos surfaced of Maxwell with known criminals, expertly doctored to suggest long-term conspiracy. Each new revelation seemed designed to destroy not just his business, but his very identity. Charles worked tirelessly to secure what assets he could, but the Institute's reach proved extensive. Bank managers suddenly discovered irregularities in accounts. Property titles were contested with fabricated evidence. Even the penthouse's ownership came under legal attack, threatening their physical sanctuary. Sterling's takeover bid gained momentum as frightened shareholders jumped ship. The board, facing pressure from their own compromised positions, began discussions about forcing Maxwell out. Their once loyal corporate soldiers now moved against him with mechanical precision, suggesting the Institute's influence reached deeper than anyone had suspected. Emily recognized the systematic destruction of Maxwell's empire as a textbook Institute operation. "They did this to Mom too," she revealed during a late-night strategy session. "First they destroy your reputation, then your resources, finally your resolve. They want you to feel as helpless as Sarah did at the end. Her words carried the weight of personal experience and generational trauma. The company's philanthropic foundation, Sarah's Legacy Project, came under particular attack. Anonymous tips led to investigations into its activities, suggesting the children's homes it supported were recruiting grounds for Project Guardian Angel. Maxwell watched helplessly as his sister's dream of protecting vulnerable children was twisted into evidence of his alleged crimes. Legal challenges multiplied exponentially. Shareholders filed class action lawsuits. Regulatory agencies launched simultaneous investigations. Even longtime clients joined the feeding frenzy, breaking contracts and publicly denouncing their association with Ryan Enterprises. The legal department, overwhelmed and possibly compromised, began deserting en masse. In a particularly cruel twist, evidence emerged suggesting Harrison's embezzlement had been orchestrated with Maxwell's knowledge. The Institute had carefully constructed a paper trail showing years of collaboration in illegal activities, making his former partner's betrayal appear to be a falling out among conspirators rather than an attack. Emily's school records were leaked next, revealing inconsistencies that the Institute had deliberately planted. Questions about her true identity and Maxwell's relationship with her became front-page news. Child Protection Services, now clearly influenced by Institute operators, began proceedings to remove her from his custody. The financial hemorrhage continued unabated. Market analysts who tried to defend Ryan Enterprises found their own credibility under attack. Major investors who stood by Maxwell faced similar coordinated assaults on their interests. The message was clear: anyone who didn't abandon him would be destroyed alongside him. As their resources dwindled, Maxwell and Emily worked frantically to secure what they could. She taught him her specialized encoding techniques, hiding critical information within seemingly innocent business documents. They transferred what assets they could through channels she had been trained to keep hidden from even the Institute's surveillance. Charles watched the destruction of his employer's life's work with stoic determination, his loyalty unwavering even as others fled. He understood now that their true wealth lay not in the crumbling financial empire, but in the family bond that the Institute had inadvertently strengthened through their attacks. The crisis reached its peak when Maxwell's personal accounts were drained, leaving them with only the emergency resources Emily had squirreled away through her training. The Institute had succeeded in their first phase, stripping away the protective layer of wealth and influence that had sheltered them. But they had miscalculated one crucial factor: the strength of the family bonds they themselves had created through Sarah's legacy. As they watched the stock ticker signal the death of Ryan Enterprises, Maxwell held Emily's hand, both understanding that this devastating loss was just the beginning of their real fight. The Institute had taken his company, his reputation, and his resources, but they had failed to break the most important thing: his determination to protect Sarah's daughter and expose the truth she died trying to reveal. The morning Emily disappeared, Maxwell's world imploded. Her room was immaculate, the bed perfectly made, her latest mural incomplete, a half-finished scene showing Sarah's last moments. The canvas bag was gone, but in its place lay a single drawing, a detailed map of the Institute's command structure, with one name circled in red: Harrison's. Panic consumed the penthouse. Charles activated their emergency protocols, but Emily had disabled their tracking systems with frightening efficiency. Security footage showed her leaving at exactly 3:27 a.m., moving with the practiced precision of a trained operative. Her last visible action was a deliberate look at the camera, mouthing words Maxwell would replay countless times: protect the evidence. Trust no one. The note arrived 2 hours later, delivered by a homeless man who had no memory of who gave it to him. Written in Emily's precise handwriting, they're moving to phase 2. Harrison is alive. Sarah's killer is inside Ryan Enterprises. Mom's protocol activated. I'm sorry. The paper contained trace elements of a compound Catherine had developed a signature proving its authenticity. Maxwell's deterioration was rapid and severe. Sleep became impossible as he scoured security feeds, analyzed patterns, and tried to decipher Emily's last message. His hands shook constantly, mind racing through possible scenarios, each worse than the last. The weight of failure first Sarah, now Emily threatened to crush him completely. Charles found him in Sarah's old room at 3 a.m., surrounded by Emily's drawings and Catherine's research notes, muttering about patterns and protocols. The butler watched his employer, his friend, unravel, recognizing the same desperate energy that had consumed him after Sarah's death. But this time the stakes were even higher. The Institute's psychological warfare intensified. Phone calls came at exactly 3:27 a.m. each night. When answered, only Emily's voice reciting numbers, clearly recorded under duress. Packages arrived containing pieces of the canvas bag, each accompanied by photos of Emily in different locations, her expressions revealing a complex code only Maxwell could understand. Their enemies exploited Maxwell's emotional vulnerability. Thomas Sterling launched a public campaign questioning his mental stability using security footage of his increasingly erratic behavior. Board members leaked stories about his obsession with Emily, twisting their relationship into something sinister. Even loyal employees began viewing him with suspicion. Emily's school records were mysteriously altered, suggesting she had never officially existed. Her artwork vanished from the penthouse walls, replaced by blank spaces that seemed to mock Maxwell's grasp on reality. Only Charles witnessed his late-night attempts to recreate her murals from memory, each version more desperate than the last. The pressure reached a breaking point when Child Services arrived with a court order, accompanied by agents whose subtle mannerisms Emily had taught Maxwell to recognize as institute training. They demanded access to Emily's room, claiming evidence of abuse. Maxwell's resistance led to a physical confrontation that made headlines. Tech mogul assaults officials investigating missing child case. Catherine's video surfaced on every screen in the penthouse simultaneously, a new message showing Emily undergoing institute training, interspersed with footage of Sarah's final moments. The psychological torture was precisely calibrated, using Maxwell's deepest fears and failures against him. Each frame reinforced his inability to protect the women in his life. Charles discovered Maxwell in the panic room, systematically destroying evidence of their investigation into the institute. The butler recognized the behavior not a breakdown, but a tactical decision. "They want us to think we're losing control," Maxwell explained, his voice eerily calm. "But Emily taught me their patterns. This is their endgame protocol." The personal attacks escalated. Anonymous sources revealed Maxwell's childhood trauma, his years in foster care twisted into a narrative suggesting cycle of abuse. Journalists camped outside the penthouse, their questions becoming increasingly hostile. Even his most basic actions were scrutinized for signs of instability or malice. Emily's voice haunted the penthouse through hidden speakers the Institute had planted years ago. Her conversations with Maxwell played on loop, edited to suggest manipulation and control. The psychological warfare was designed to break him, using his love for his niece as a weapon against his sanity. Social Services launched a full investigation into Maxwell's fostering history, suggesting a pattern of inappropriate relationships with vulnerable children. The Institute's manipulation was subtle but effective, turning his genuine care for Emily into something suspicious and dark. Each accusation chipped away at his already fragile emotional state. The final blow came in the form of a video delivered directly to the board footage suggesting Maxwell had orchestrated Emily's disappearance to prevent her from revealing company secrets. The timestamp showed it was recorded the night she vanished, but subtle inconsistencies, ones only she had taught him to recognize, proved it was manufactured. As midnight approached on the 7th day of Emily's disappearance, Maxwell sat in her room, surrounded by the remnants of their shared life. Her drawings covered the walls, each one now revealing hidden meanings and warnings he hadn't understood in time. The weight of failure pressed down on him, threatening to destroy what remained of his resolve. Charles found him there, staring at Emily's last drawing. The butler placed a hand on his shoulder, offering silent support as Maxwell finally voiced his deepest fear. What if I can't save her? What if I fail her like I failed Sarah? The question hung in the air, heavy with the weight of generational trauma and responsibility. But even in this darkest moment, something shifted in Maxwell's eyes. Emily had prepared him for this, trained him to recognize the Institute's patterns. Their attempts to break him had instead crystallized his purpose. As dawn approached, he stood with renewed determination. They hadn't just taken his niece, they'd challenged the legacy of 3 generations of his family. And this time he wouldn't fail. If this story of unbreakable family bonds and sacrifice touches your heart, a simple like would mean the world. Your support helps stories of hope and courage reach more people. The dismantling of Maxwell Ryan's empire reached its brutal conclusion on a grey Wednesday morning. The board voted unanimously to remove him as CEO, their faces blank with Institute-programmed indifference. Security escorts appeared instantly, leading him past employees who averted their eyes, past the office he'd occupied for 20 years, past the wall of achievements that now seemed hollow. Ryan Enterprises stock had plummeted to worthless pennies, destroying not just Maxwell's wealth, but the financial security of thousands of employees. The Institute's attack was comprehensive, targeting not just company assets, but the entire support structure Maxwell had built. Pension funds vanished, health benefits disappeared, and families who had trusted him with their futures found themselves facing ruin. The penthouse, his last fortress of security, fell next. Bank foreclosure notices arrived simultaneously at every property he owned, the coordination revealing the Institute's fingerprints. Even the emergency accounts Emily had helped him hide were somehow compromised, leaving them with only the resources she had physically cached around the city. Charles watched helplessly as moving crews stripped the penthouse of its treasures, family heirlooms, art collections, even Sarah's photographs, all seized as collateral. The butler maintained his dignity as he supervised the removal of items he'd carefully tended for years, ensuring that key pieces of evidence remained hidden within seemingly worthless personal effects. The media feasted on his downfall with orchestrated glee. Tech Titan's empire crumbles amid child exploitation allegations dominated headlines. Former allies gave interviews describing his erratic behavior and obsession with Emily. Each story carefully crafted to destroy not just his wealth, but his very identity. Maxwell's private accounts were frozen, credit cards cancelled, memberships revoked. The Institute's financial attack left him unable to access even basic resources. High society friends disappeared, charity boards demanded his resignation, and social clubs quietly removed his name from their registers. The isolation was calculated and complete. The most painful loss came when the Institute targeted Sarah's foundation. The children's homes it supported were suddenly swamped with allegations of abuse, their funding frozen, their residents displaced. Maxwell watched helplessly as his sister's legacy of protection was twisted into another weapon against him, forcing vulnerable children back into the system that had once claimed Sarah. The final blow was the seizure of Emily's room. As authorities catalogued its contents, Maxwell recognized Institute operatives among them, methodically searching for any trace of her hidden messages. They stripped the walls of her murals, each piece of artwork carefully documented before disappearing into unmarked vans. The room that had once held so much hope became another sterile space in a dying empire. Financial advisors, lawyers, and crisis managers all delivered the same verdict: Maxwell Ryan was toxic, untouchable, professionally dead. The Institute had engineered his destruction with such precision that even those who suspected foul play dared not align themselves with him. His calls went unanswered, his emails unread, his very name becoming synonymous with disgrace. Yet amidst the ruins of his fortune, Maxwell found an unexpected clarity. Each loss stripped away another layer of the identity he'd hidden behind, revealing the determined young man who had once promised to protect his sister at any cost. The Institute had taken his wealth, but had inadvertently freed him from the golden chains that had kept him from fully embracing Sarah's fight. Charles stood by him through it all, his loyalty unwavering even as his salary disappeared. The butler understood that their true wealth now lay in the knowledge Emily had left them, in the network of safe houses she had prepared, in the evidence carefully hidden within the wreckage of their former life. They might have lost everything of material value, but they had gained something far more precious: purpose. The last item removed from the penthouse was the portrait of Sarah that had hung in Maxwell's study. As he watched it being carried away, he remembered Emily's words, "Sometimes you have to lose everything to see what really matters." The Institute had orchestrated his financial destruction, but they had failed to understand that in doing so they had also removed every distraction from his true mission: finding Emily and finishing what Sarah had started. The destruction of Maxwell Ryan's reputation was executed with clinical precision. Every newspaper, magazine, and social media platform carried carefully crafted stories painting him as a monster hiding behind philanthropic gestures. Former employees emerged with coached testimonies about suspicious activities involving children at company facilities. His decades of charitable work were reframed as elaborate covers for sinister operations. Emily's disappearance became the centerpiece of the character assassination. Missing Girl's dark connection to fallen billionaires screamed the headlines, accompanied by strategically selected security footage showing their interactions in the most questionable light possible. Child psychologists appeared on national television, analyzing their relationship with deliberate misinterpretation, suggesting patterns of manipulation and control. The social isolation was absolute. Former friends crossed the street to avoid him. Restaurant reservations were mysteriously cancelled. Even his regular coffee shop, where he'd been a patron for 15 years, suddenly posted his picture with a "Do Not Serve" notice. The Institute's influence reached into every corner of his daily life, transforming routine interactions into exercises in humiliation. Maxwell's mental health became public spectacle. Paparazzi documented his sleepless nights, his desperate searches through the city, his increasingly haggard appearance. Each photo was accompanied by speculation about his sanity, with experts diagnosing everything from paranoid delusions to psychotic breaks. The Institute ensured that every genuine display of concern for Emily was twisted into evidence of obsession. Charles witnessed the transformation of his employer with quiet heartbreak. The confident businessman was replaced by a haunted figure who jumped at shadows, who spent hours staring at Emily's drawings, searching for hidden messages, who woke screaming from nightmares about Sarah and Emily. The butler became not just a servant but a guardian, protecting Maxwell from both external threats and his own deepening despair. The psychological warfare extended to Emily's school community. Parents who had once sought Maxwell's friendship now organized protests demanding investigation into their children's exposure to him. Teachers who had praised Emily's artistic talents suddenly remembered disturbing elements in her work. The Institute's manipulation turned every memory, every interaction into potential evidence of wrongdoing. Anonymous threats arrived daily, each one demonstrating intimate knowledge of Maxwell's movements and thoughts. Notes appeared in impossible places: his locked car, his secured temporary apartment, even his pockets, reminding him that no space was truly private, no moment unobserved. The constant surveillance wore away at his sense of reality, making him question every memory, every relationship. The final blow to his personal dignity came when video footage surfaced showing his confrontation with child services. The Institute's edited version portrayed him as violent and unstable, erasing the context of their provocations. Social media exploded with hashtags demanding his arrest, his face becoming synonymous with privilege and corruption gone mad. Through it all, Maxwell clung to the one truth he knew: the Institute couldn't fake his connection to Emily, his niece Sarah's daughter. Every attack on his character, every destroyed relationship, every public humiliation served only to prove the depth of their desperation to discredit him. They wouldn't work this hard to destroy him if he wasn't a genuine threat to their operations. As his world contracted to a handful of safe spaces and trusted allies, Maxwell found an unexpected strength in his isolation. Each lost friend, each public rejection, each psychological attack stripped away another layer of pretense, leaving only the essential truth: he was Sarah's brother, Emily's uncle, and their legacy was worth any personal cost. The Institute might destroy his reputation, but they couldn't touch the core of who he had become through loving and losing them. The Institute's final assault came at midnight, precisely when Maxwell's defenses were lowest. Child Protective Services arrived with a court order and armed officers, their movements betraying military training beneath civilian disguises. The demand was non-negotiable: immediate separation from any connection to Emily's case, including surrender of all her remaining possessions and artwork. The scene turned chaotic as Maxwell desperately tried to protect the last physical traces of their time together. Security cameras captured his breakdown as officers methodically stripped Emily's room, each drawing and notebook disappearing into evidence bags. Charles stood helplessly watching his employer sink to his knees, clutching one of Emily's discarded sketches, the perfect composure of Maxwell Ryan finally shattering completely. Legal battles consumed what remained of their resources. Every attempt to maintain connection with Emily's case was met with restraining orders and threats of imprisonment. The Institute's influence reached deep into the judicial system, ensuring that each appeal was denied, each motion dismissed. Maxwell's own lawyers began withdrawing, citing ethical concerns that seemed scripted by unseen handlers. The psychological warfare peaked with a staged intervention. Former board members, manipulated friends, and even distant relatives appeared at his temporary apartment, armed with commitment papers, their rehearsed concerns about his mental state, his obsession with Emily, and his paranoid conspiracies about the Institute felt like lines from a cruel play. Maxwell recognized their glazed expressions, the same look Emily had warned him about, indicating deep programming. Identity crisis struck hardest during the mandatory psychiatric evaluations. Institute-controlled doctors questioned every aspect of his reality: his memories of Sarah, his relationship with Emily, even his own name. Hours of interrogation disguised as therapy wore down his defenses, making him question the truth he'd discovered. Had he imagined the connections? Was Emily's resemblance to Sarah a desperate fantasy? Charles found him one morning in the bare apartment, surrounded by newspaper clippings and torn drawings, muttering about patterns and codes. The butler recognized the dangerous edge in his employer's eyes, not madness, but a man pushed to his absolute limits. The Institute had calculated this breakdown perfectly, using isolation and gaslighting to break what financial ruin couldn't touch. The attempt to separate them reached its climax when evidence emerged suggesting Maxwell had orchestrated Emily's entire appearance in his life. Doctored photographs, falsified documents, and manipulated testimony painted him as a calculating predator who had manufactured their connection for unclear but sinister purposes. The psychological damage of having their genuine bond twisted into something dark nearly broke him completely. In their darkest hour, even Charles's unwavering loyalty was tested. The butler received anonymous packages containing evidence that seemed to implicate Maxwell in Sarah's death, in Harrison's disappearance, in an elaborate conspiracy spanning decades. Though he recognized the Institute's manipulation, the seeds of doubt proved difficult to ignore completely. Maxwell's descent reached its nadir when he found himself standing on the penthouse roof at 3:27 a.m. Emily's favorite drawings scattered around him, Sarah's last known photograph clutched in his hand. The Institute had taken everything: his wealth, his reputation, his connections, and now they were methodically erasing every trace of the family bonds that had given his life meaning. But even at this lowest point, something in Emily's training had prepared him for this moment. Through the haze of despair, he began to recognize the Institute's endgame protocol: the systematic destruction of a target's support system, identity, and will to fight. They had orchestrated his breakdown perfectly, but in doing so, they had made one critical mistake. They had given him nothing left to lose. The breakthrough came hidden in Emily's final mural, revealed only when water damage from a deliberate pipe burst made specific pigments fluorescent. Dr. Catherine Sullivan's complete confession emerged in complex patterns of seemingly decorative elements, a detailed expose of the Institute's origins, operations, and ultimate goals. The artistic encryption was a technique she'd developed specifically for Emily, knowing only Maxwell would have reason to preserve her artwork through any destruction. Catherine's story began 20 years ago when the Institute recruited her as a brilliant young behavioral scientist. Their pitch seemed humanitarian, developing advanced educational methods for gifted orphans. But the reality proved far darker. They weren't creating prodigies, they were manufacturing perfect infiltrators, children trained to observe, analyze, and influence at levels beyond normal human capability. The murdered mother's narrative revealed how the Institute had originated from a classified government program studying heightened pattern recognition in trauma survivors. They discovered that certain children, particularly those who had experienced early loss, could develop almost supernatural abilities to read and predict human behavior. The Institute perverted this research, turning therapeutic techniques into psychological programming tools. Sarah's role in the story proved more crucial than anyone had imagined. She hadn't simply been selected for the program, she'd been deliberately orphaned. Her separation from Maxwell engineered to create the optimal psychological conditions for the Institute's conditioning. Catherine's documentation showed how they'd manipulated the foster care system, ensuring Sarah's placement in increasingly traumatic situations to enhance her natural abilities. But Sarah had done something unprecedented. She'd maintained her humanity. Despite the Institute's best efforts at psychological conditioning, her love for her brother remained her anchor to reality. She began documenting their operations, gathering evidence while rising through their ranks. When she discovered she was pregnant with Emily, she turned to Catherine for help, knowing her daughter would be born into their twisted system. The most shocking revelation came in Catherine's detailed account of Harrison's true role. He hadn't merely embezzled funds, he'd been the Institute's primary conduit into legitimate businesses, identifying potential targets for infiltration and manipulation. His betrayal of Maxwell had been orchestrated years in advance, designed to create the perfect conditions for Emily's eventual insertion into Maxwell's life. Catherine's documentation revealed the full scope of the Institute's operation. Hundreds of children processed through their program, now embedded in positions of power worldwide. Their goal wasn't mere intelligence gathering, but societal manipulation on a massive scale. These children, grown into adults, could influence decisions at the highest levels of government and industry, their conditioning making them perfect unconscious agents of the Institute's agenda. Sarah's death, Catherine revealed, had been ordered not because she threatened to expose their operation, but because she'd discovered their endgame. The Institute wasn't content with influence, they were engineering social collapse, using their network of conditioned agents to destabilize global systems. Their ultimate goal was to create chaos sufficient to justify implementing their own version of order. The most personal parts of Catherine's confession detailed her relationship with Emily. She'd used the Institute's own techniques to program protection protocols into her daughter's mind, but also worked tirelessly to preserve her humanity. Every survival skill was balanced with art therapy, every combat technique with emotional connection. She'd designed Emily to be both the Institute's perfect creation and their potential downfall. The final pages contained operational details. Maxwell had been seeking locations of Institute facilities, names of key operators, and most crucially, the programming protocols used to control their agents. Catherine had spent years documenting their psychological techniques, creating a manual for potentially deprogramming their victims. This information was what Sarah had died trying to protect, what Emily had been trained since birth to preserve. Most critically, Catherine's confession included proof that Harrison was still alive, held in an Institute facility as insurance against Maxwell potentially discovering the truth. His supposed betrayal had been orchestrated to distract from the larger operation, his disappearance designed to occupy Maxwell's attention while Emily was positioned for her mission. The documentation ended with Catherine's final message, written in a code that had taken Emily years to teach Maxwell. Through their seemingly casual interactions, the Institute believes they've created perfect observers. But they forgot that true humanity can't be programmed out of existence. Emily carries both their programming and our hope for redemption. Trust her confusion, Maxwell. It's where her humanity fights against their conditioning. The truth you need will be found in the moments when the perfect operative falters and the child shines through. As Maxwell absorbed the magnitude of Catherine's revelation, pieces began falling into place. Every seemingly suspicious behavior of Emily's now read differently, not as deception, but as a battle between programming and genuine connection. The Institute had created their perfect weapon, but in doing so, they'd given Maxwell exactly what he needed to destroy them, proof of their existence, and a niece whose humanity had survived their worst attempts at erasure. Emily's calculated appearance in Maxwell's life took on new meaning as Catherine's revelations unfolded. Every detail of her arrival had been meticulously planned, from the precise placement on his doorstep to the strategic timing after Harrison's disappearance. She had been programmed with multiple mission protocols, operating simultaneously in layers of complexity that even the Institute hadn't fully understood. The canvas bag, her constant companion, proved to be a masterpiece of psychological warfare design. Catherine had engineered it as both a tool and a test, filling it with evidence that would only be meaningful to someone who had developed genuine emotional connections with Emily. The seemingly random items inside formed a complex puzzle that only true concern for her well-being would drive someone to solve. Her artistic talents, far from being simply inherited from Sarah, were actually a sophisticated communication system developed by Catherine. Each drawing contained multiple layers of encoded information, visible only to those who knew her well enough to recognize subtle patterns in her artistic choices. Maxwell realized that Emily had been steadily feeding him intelligence about the Institute's operations through every sketch, every mural, every seemingly innocent doodle. The nightmares that had plagued Emily weren't just trauma responses, they were programmed information dumps, her subconscious mind processing and transmitting data during periods of lowered mental defenses. Her apparent anxiety attacks had actually been carefully timed information broadcasts, sending updates to a network of resistance operatives Catherine had planted within the Institute's own ranks. Catherine's programming had given Emily an unprecedented dual nature. On one level, she functioned as the Institute's perfect creation, a hyper-aware observer capable of processing vast amounts of information. But beneath that conditioning lay a deeper protocol, genuine human connection. Every moment of real emotion she shared with Maxwell had been both completely authentic and part of Catherine's master plan to maintain her humanity. The behavioral patterns that had seemed suspicious, her precise movements, her tactical awareness, her perfect recall, were deliberately designed to trigger Maxwell's protective instincts, while simultaneously establishing her credibility as an Institute operative. Catherine had gambled that Maxwell's love for Sarah would help him see past the operative to the niece beneath, and she had been right. Emily's role extended far beyond simple surveillance or protection. She was the key to a vast database of Institute operations, her mind programmed with encryption keys that could unlock hidden evidence caches worldwide. Every location she memorized, every conversation she recorded, every pattern she recognized was part of a larger map leading to the Institute's complete exposure. The most brilliant aspect of Catherine's plan was how she had used the Institute's own methodology against them. Emily's conditioning included fail-safes and blind spots that appeared to be programming flaws, but were actually protected spaces where her true personality could develop. Her seemingly erratic emotional responses were carefully designed breaks in her training, allowing genuine connections to form despite the Institute's protocols. Her disappearance, Maxwell now realized, hadn't been a kidnapping but the activation of Catherine's final protocol. Emily had been programmed with specific triggers that would force her to seek out key evidence caches once certain conditions were met. Her apparent abandonment of Maxwell was actually the deepest expression of trust following her programming, while trusting him to understand and continue the mission. The coded messages she left behind took on new significance. Each apparent warning was also an activation key, designed to unlock specific memories and training sequences in Maxwell's own mind. Catherine had used Emily's time with him to subtly program responses and recognition patterns that would only activate when needed. Every shared moment had been both genuine bonding and careful preparation. Catherine's ultimate gambit was revealed in Emily's final role. She was designed to be a living key to deprogramming the Institute's entire network of operatives. Her unique combination of conditioning and preserved humanity made her the perfect template for reversing their psychological controls. But this knowledge had to be earned through genuine emotional connection, not extracted through force or manipulation. The Institute had created what they thought was their perfect weapon, never realizing that Catherine had built in a fatal flaw: the capacity for real love. Every moment Emily spent with Maxwell strengthened this flaw, reinforcing her humanity while maintaining her operational effectiveness. She was both the most successful and most dangerous product of their program, capable of perfect observation while retaining the ability to choose what to do with that knowledge. As Maxwell pieced together Emily's true purpose, he understood why the Institute had worked so hard to separate them. Their connection wasn't just emotional, it was the key to unlocking everything Catherine and Sarah had died protecting. Emily wasn't just his niece or an operative, she was the culmination of a decades-long plan to expose and dismantle the Institute using their own methods against them. The collapse of the Institute began not with a bang, but with a whisper, a cascading series of seemingly unrelated system failures across their network. Emily's programmed protocols, activated by her disappearance, had initiated a dormant virus Catherine designed years ago. Through the very surveillance systems the Institute used to maintain control, their own operational data began leaking to carefully chosen journalists, law enforcement agencies, and intelligence officials worldwide. Maxwell recognized Emily's artistic signature in the way the information emerged: beautiful patterns of destruction, each revelation timed to maximize impact while protecting their surviving agents. Financial records surfaced showing the Institute's manipulation of global markets. Training facility locations appeared on military radar. Hidden accounts funneling money through Harrison's old network suddenly became transparent to international investigators. The evidence Catherine had embedded in Emily's consciousness proved devastating. Decades of psychological conditioning techniques, experimental protocols, and forced behavioral modifications were exposed. The Institute's own meticulous documentation of their programs became their undoing. Each revelation triggered another, like dominoes falling in an elaborate pattern only Emily could have orchestrated. Harrison's rescue from an Institute facility made international headlines, though few understood its true significance. His testimony, carefully prepared through Catherine's programming, provided the legal framework needed to dismantle the Institute's corporate shields. He revealed how they had engineered his betrayal of Maxwell, using him as an unwitting pawn in their larger game. The public vindication of Maxwell Ryan became a media sensation. Evidence emerged proving the Institute's campaign to destroy his reputation, including testimony from former board members about their forced cooperation. His apparent mental breakdown was revealed as a calculated response to systematic psychological warfare. Former critics now praised his resilience in the face of organized destruction. Sarah's death was finally exposed as the calculated assassination it had been. Security footage Catherine had hidden in Emily's encoded drawings showed Institute operators staging the foster home fire. The revelation of their willingness to murder a child to protect their secrets sparked international outrage. Law enforcement agencies worldwide began connecting cold cases to Institute operations. Emily's reappearance was carefully staged for maximum effect. She emerged during a United Nations hearing on the Institute's activities, her testimony devastating in its precision. The combination of her trained analytical abilities and preserved humanity made her an unimpeachable witness. Her detailed accounts of the Institute's operations, supported by Catherine's documented evidence, left no room for denial. The Institute's network of programmed operatives began to unravel as Emily implemented Catherine's deprogramming protocols. Agents worldwide started breaking free of their conditioning, their recovered memories providing further evidence of the Institute's crimes. The organization's strength, its ability to manipulate human behavior, became its greatest weakness as their own people turned against them. Justice moved swiftly once the full scope of the Institute's operations became clear. International arrest warrants were issued for key operators. Assets were frozen worldwide. Former Institute facilities were converted into rehabilitation centers for their victims. But the very systems they had built to protect themselves now served to ensure their complete dismantling. Maxwell watched from his restored penthouse as the Institute crumbled, each news report confirming another victory. Emily worked tirelessly beside him, using her training to identify and assist in deprogramming other operatives. Their bond, tested by fire and deception, had emerged stronger. The Institute's attempt to use their connection as a weapon had instead created an unbreakable partnership. Charles documented everything, his meticulous nature now serving to create an official record of the Institute's fall. His loyalty, unwavering through their darkest moments, was vindicated as the truth emerged. The butler's quiet strength had provided the foundation they needed to survive until justice could be served. The final piece fell into place with the discovery of Catherine's last gift, a complete database of the Institute's operations, hidden within Emily's artistic training. The information provided authorities with everything needed to prevent any possibility of the organization re-emerging. Catherine's foresight had ensured that her daughter's freedom would be protected by the complete destruction of the system that had tried to control her. As the Institute's last facilities were raided and its final operators brought to justice, Maxwell and Emily stood on the penthouse roof at sunset. The city below them hummed with life, unaware of how close it had come to falling under complete psychological control. They had lost much in their battle wealth, reputation, innocence, but had gained something far more valuable: the truth about their family and the chance to honor Sarah's sacrifice. The Institute had created what they thought was the perfect system of control, never realizing that their greatest achievement, Emily, would become the key to their destruction. In trying to program out humanity, they had instead proven its resilience. Justice had been served not through force or deception, but through the one thing they couldn't control or predict: the enduring power of family love. The small town of Millbrook welcomed them quietly, without fanfare or scrutiny. Maxwell chose it precisely for its unremarkable nature, a place where Emily could experience normal childhood moments without the weight of her training constantly pressing down. The Victorian house they purchased, though modest compared to the penthouse, offered something far more valuable: anonymity. But Charles accompanied them, naturally, transitioning seamlessly from butler to family member. His presence provided continuity, a bridge between their past life and this new beginning. He converted the garden shed into a security hub, maintaining vigilance without compromising their attempt at normalcy. His morning routines now included teaching Emily about proper tea service alongside monitoring Global Institute activity reports. The idea for the community center emerged from Emily's drawing sketches of children playing, learning, healing. Maxwell used what remained of their resources to convert an abandoned warehouse into Sarah's place, a sanctuary for children affected by trauma. The programs they developed incorporated subtle elements of Emily's deprogramming protocols, helping other Institute survivors while maintaining their cover as a standard youth center. Emily's integration into normal life progressed in careful stages. She enrolled in the local school under Catherine's family name, her extraordinary abilities tempered by careful coaching on how to blend in. Her art classes became her sanctuary, a place where she could express herself without fear of revealing too much. Her teachers noted her talent, but attributed it to natural gift rather than intensive training. The house slowly transformed from a safe house into a home. Emily's artwork began appearing on walls, not as coded messages but as genuine expressions of emotion. Maxwell converted the attic into an art studio for her, complete with skylights that let her track the movement of stars, a habit from her training that now brought comfort rather than tactical advantage. Their family dynamic evolved in unexpected ways. Maxwell learned to be an uncle rather than a protector, discovering the joy in simple moments like helping with homework or arguing about bedtime. Emily gradually allowed herself to act her age, her laughter becoming more frequent, her hypervigilance softening into normal childhood awareness. Charles found his own path to renewal, establishing a cooking school in the community center's kitchen. His classes became popular among local youth, though few realized how he wove subtle lessons about awareness and self-protection into his culinary instructions. His legendary chocolate chip cookies became a symbol of comfort for children working through trauma recovery programs. The community embraced them gradually, drawn by their quiet dedication to helping others. Maxwell joined the town council, using his business experience to revitalize the local economy without drawing attention to his past. Emily started a youth art program, her institute training finding positive expression in her ability to recognize and nurture talent in others. Their house became known as a safe haven for children in crisis. Through carefully established networks, they began receiving young institute survivors, providing temporary shelter while connecting them with legitimate support services. Each success story helped heal their own wounds. Each child saved a small victory against the system that had tried to destroy them. Sarah's presence remained strong in their new life, but transformed from a shadow of guilt into a source of inspiration. Her photo hung in the community center's entrance, her smile welcoming each new child seeking help. Maxwell often found Emily sitting beneath it, sketching portraits of the mother she'd never met, but whose legacy she carried forward. The transformation of their mission from revenge to rehabilitation happened naturally. Instead of focusing on hunting down remaining institute operators, they channeled their energy into healing its victims. The databases Emily had helped expose were now used to identify and reach out to other survivors, offering them a path to recovery. Their security measures remained robust but unobtrusive. Charles maintained contact with trusted allies in law enforcement and intelligence communities, while Emily's art continued to encode critical updates about potential threats. But these precautions no longer dominated their lives, they were simply part of their new normal. Maxwell found unexpected peace in their simpler lifestyle. The pressure of running a global empire was replaced by the more meaningful challenge of helping individual children rebuild their lives. His business skills found new purpose in managing the community center's resources and developing sustainable support programs. The small town's rhythms began to heal them all. Emily discovered the joy of seasonal celebrations without tactical analysis. Maxwell learned to measure success in smiles rather than stock prices, and Charles found that his perfectionist tendencies could create beauty beyond mere order. Together, they were building something the Institute had never anticipated: a genuine family, stronger for being chosen rather than programmed. The most profound changes occurred in the quiet moments when no one was watching. Maxwell discovered he could go whole days without checking security feeds, his paranoia gradually replaced by a cautious optimism. He caught himself smiling at simple things: Emily's morning bedhead, Charles' exasperated sighs over scattered art supplies, the way sunlight filtered through their kitchen windows during family breakfasts. Emily's transformation was even more remarkable. The rigid posture of a trained operative softened into the natural slouch of a teenager. Her observation journals evolved from tactical assessments into typical diary entries about school crushes and friendship drama. Though she maintained her extraordinary capabilities, she learned to find joy in being occasionally wonderfully average. The process of healing manifested in unexpected ways. Emily began teaching art classes at Sarah's place, using her institute training to identify children struggling with trauma. Her ability to read micro-expressions and behavioral patterns became a gift rather than a weapon, allowing her to connect with young survivors who couldn't yet verbalize their experiences. Each breakthrough with a child helped heal her own wounds. Maxwell's business acumen found new purpose in expanding their support network. He developed sustainable funding models for trauma recovery programs, ensuring their work could continue without drawing attention. His former obsession with control transformed into a talent for creating safe spaces where healing could occur naturally. The skills that had built his empire now served to rebuild shattered lives. Charles underwent perhaps the most subtle but significant change. His rigid butler's persona gradually melded with the warmth of a grandfather figure. He maintained his impeccable standards but learned to value the chaos that came with nurturing troubled children. His security protocols now included knowing every child's favorite cookie recipe and which stories best soothed nightmares. Their home became a living testament to their transformation. Emily's art studio produced works of genuine emotion rather than coded messages. Maxwell's study, once a fortress of isolation, stayed open to impromptu chess games and homework sessions. Even Charles' meticulously organized kitchen welcomed the disorder of cooking lessons with recovering children. The healing spread through the community like ripples in a pond. Local families began to notice changes in their own children who attended programs at Sarah's place. Teachers reported improved behavior and emotional regulation in students who participated in Emily's art classes. The town itself seemed to absorb their message of renewal and second chances. Emily's artistic evolution tracked her emotional growth. Her early works, precise and controlled, gave way to more experimental pieces that explored themes of identity and redemption. She began incorporating elements of her institute training into public art installations that subtly promoted healing and community connection. Her talent, once a tool for survival, became a bridge to understanding. Maxwell discovered leadership qualities he'd never developed in the corporate world. He learned to listen more than direct, to guide rather than control. His relationship with Emily deepened as he allowed himself to be both protector and protected, learning from her even as he helped her navigate normal teenage experiences. Their bond, forged in crisis, matured into genuine family love. The community center became a model for trauma recovery nationwide, though few understood its true significance. Other towns began requesting guidance on establishing similar programs. Maxwell and Emily carefully shared their methodologies while maintaining the confidentiality of their institute knowledge. Their approach to healing became their most effective weapon against their former oppressors. Charles's cooking school evolved into a revolutionary therapy program. He incorporated elements of mindfulness and emotional regulation into his lessons, helping children ground themselves through the simple act of creating nourishing food. His kitchen became known as a place where broken spirits could find restoration through the simple act of making bread or stirring soup. Emily's relationship with her past underwent the most dramatic transformation. She learned to integrate her institute training with her authentic self, finding strength in both her extraordinary capabilities and her ordinary desires. Her nightmares decreased, replaced by dreams of future possibilities. She began mentoring other survivors, showing them how to reclaim their humanity without denying their unique abilities. Maxwell's definition of family expanded beyond blood ties and shared trauma. He opened their home to temporary foster placements, particularly children showing signs of institute conditioning. Each success story helped heal the wound of failing Sarah, transforming his grief into purposeful action. He learned that redemption came not from erasing the past, but from using it to create a better future. Their collective transformation created something the Institute had never anticipated: a model for genuine human connection that was stronger than any programmed loyalty. They proved that authentic bonds could overcome conditional responses, that love could rewire patterns of fear and control. In choosing to heal rather than hunt, to build rather than destroy, they discovered their most powerful form of resistance. The last piece of the Institute's legacy surfaced on Emily's 16th birthday, hidden within a series of paintings Sarah had created before her death. Maxwell discovered them in an old storage unit, each canvas containing coded coordinates leading to survivalist caches his sister had established. These weren't just supply depots, they were lifelines for future Institute escapes, complete with new identities and resources for starting over. Emily's response to this discovery revealed how far she'd come. Instead of immediately analyzing the tactical advantages, she spent hours tracing her mother's brushstrokes, connecting with Sarah through their shared artistic talent. The paintings became a bridge between past and future, transforming from operational assets into family heirlooms that told their story of survival and hope. Charles orchestrated a quiet celebration when the last Institute facility was converted into a rehabilitation center. The former butler, now family patriarch, prepared a feast using recipes gathered from survivors they'd helped, each dish representing a story of recovery. The dining room that once hosted emergency strategy sessions now rang with laughter and plans for the future. Maxwell's final transformation came through an unexpected channel. He began teaching business ethics at the local community college. His lectures, drawing from personal experience without revealing classified details, helped students understand how power structures could be subverted for positive change. His past as a corporate titan became a tool for preventing future exploitation. The community center's success attracted attention from child advocacy groups nationwide. Emily developed a revolutionary art therapy program that subtly incorporated Institute deprogramming techniques into traditional healing methods. But her approach helped survivors reclaim their creativity while processing trauma, turning programmed observation skills into tools for recovery. Their family expanded in ways none could have predicted. Former Institute children, now adults with their own families, began settling in Millbrook. They created an informal support network, their shared experiences forming the foundation for genuine connections. Holiday gatherings grew larger each year, filled with people who understood the true value of chosen family. Sarah's place evolved into a recognized model for trauma recovery, though few knew its origins. The programs Emily designed helped children rediscover their authentic selves while maintaining the heightened awareness their conditioning had created. She proved that survival skills could be redirected toward healing, that hypervigilance could become protective rather than paranoid. But the final resolution of their story came not through confrontation but creation. Maxwell used his remaining resources to establish a foundation in Sarah's name, dedicated to identifying and supporting gifted children at risk of exploitation. The organization became a safeguard against any future attempt to recreate the Institute's program. Emily's art gained recognition in therapeutic circles, though critics never fully understood the deeper meanings in her work. Her exhibitions became gathering points for survivors, each piece containing coded messages of hope and healing visible only to those who shared their history. She turned the very techniques meant to control her into tools for connection and understanding. Charles's cooking school expanded into a full culinary therapy program, teaching life skills alongside kitchen techniques. His students learned more than recipes. They discovered how to trust, how to create, how to nourish themselves and others. The kitchen became a place of transformation, where precise Institute training could be channeled into creative expression. Their home security systems remained, but their purpose shifted. Instead of watching for threats, they monitored for signs of survivors seeking help. The paranoia that once drove their vigilance transformed into protective awareness, their fortress becoming a beacon for those still finding their way to freedom. Maxwell found peace in this new life, his definition of success completely transformed. Wealth and power held no appeal compared to the joy of watching Emily graduate high school, of seeing former Institute children play freely in their backyard, of knowing Sarah's sacrifice had led to something beautiful rather than bitter. Emily's final art piece, unveiled at her high school graduation, captured their journey perfectly. a massive mural depicting their story not through institute codes but through symbols of transformation: butterflies emerging from chrysalises, keys turning into birds, chains becoming flowers. The technical precision of her training served to create something deeply, authentically human. The Institute's legacy ended not with destruction but with rebirth. Each child they helped, each survivor who found their way to wholeness, represented a victory more significant than any corporate takeover or tactical success. They had turned a system designed to control and isolate into a foundation for healing and connection. As they sat together on their porch that graduation evening, watching fireflies dance in the summer air, they understood that their greatest triumph wasn't in surviving the Institute, but in proving that genuine human connection could overcome any programmed response. They had created something the Institute never could: a family bound by choice, strengthened by truth, and dedicated to ensuring that no child would ever again be turned into a weapon. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey of love, sacrifice, and redemption. If this story touched your heart, please consider subscribing to support our creative team who worked tirelessly to bring it to life. Your subscription helps us continue crafting powerful narratives that inspire and move people. Share this video with friends and family who appreciate meaningful storytelling. Don't forget to like and tell us in the comments how the story made you feel. Did Maxwell and Emily's journey touch your soul? Should we continue their story? Let us know if you'd like to see part 2 exploring their new challenges and triumphs. Your engagement guides our creative direction. Together, let's build a community that celebrates the power of family bonds.